Ed, I want to take a few minutes, and I want you to walk everybody through, because there's a lot on the internet, on news, that they're skipping around a lot. So you're the only one on here that's had this kind of experience. So walk us through what happened. Take it from the top, Ed.
Yeah, we'll just start from the beginning. We'll talk about how you plan for a mission like this, what it takes to accomplish a 37-hour mission like this, what other planes are involved, what weapons were used, and then most importantly, what happened afterwards. There's something called BDA we use in the military called bomb damage assessment. What that means is you find out what happened afterwards. And I've spent quite a bit of time this week online. There are a lot of experts online right now telling you things they know definitively. And I can tell you, as a person who understands military tactics, certainly this kind of large force exercise, most people don't know anything. There's maybe, and I mean this, there's probably 15 to 20 people in the world right now who know the full scope of what happened last night or 2 nights ago. We're just going to kind of walk through it. The first thing I want to talk about is the planning. I want to think about this for a moment. The president and the Secretary of State, the moment Israel started shooting about 9 days ago, both simultaneously said, look, we don't want, the United States aren't involved in this. We have nothing to do with this. And within 2 days, 24 to 48 hours, we were actually engaged in battle. If you remember, about 7 days ago, the president left the G7, came right back to the White House, had a national security briefing late into the night. And I will tell you, my opinion as a professional military officer is that whatever intelligence the White House showed the president, in other words, whatever intelligence the president saw, was both terrifying and actionable. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of intelligence. There's COMINT, which is communications intelligence, SIGINT, signals intelligence, ELINT, electronic intelligence. My assessment is that the Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, the best intelligence network in the world, brought the president something that was terrifying about the nuclear bunkers that we hit just 2 nights ago. That essentially starts with the target location. Now, once the president decides it's time to go, we're going to execute this mission, the target package actually is handed to Air Force planners. That's who largely conducted this mission. And we as pilots will literally begin to work from the target backwards. This is a multi-day process. You look at accesses to go in, look at access to go out. You look at the target itself and try to find the best way to hit this particular target. If you're familiar with the target, and I think we have some images of this, of several of the different targets that were hit, but you're talking about a bunker where 200, 300, 400, maybe 500 feet underneath a mountain is the target area. You can see from this picture right here, it's literally built into a complete target area. This poses a significant problem for the air crews. You cannot get a weapon 500 feet into the ground. Now, you may be able to destabilize that area, and actually, you may be able to completely suppress their use of it. We're going to get to that in a little bit when we talk to BDA. But what ended up happening on this mission is 7 B-2s took off out of Whiteman Air Force Base, and a whole bunch of B-2s took off and heading the other direction. This was a strategic deception. These airplanes flew towards Guam, where we were assuming that's where they were going to be setting up for their attack runs. Meanwhile, the 7 B-2s took off out of Whiteman Air Force Base, flying what's called a Great Circle route, well over Greenland, Iceland, skirting their way through countries that will allow us to fly over. And then at some point, as they neared Iranian airspace, probably, frankly, right over Iraqi airspace, they joined what fighter pilots we would call a strike package. Now, the package contents, the kind of aircraft that were in this package, has not been fully disclosed. What I can tell you is there are almost definitely F-22s, F-35s, F-16s, and probably F-18Es. Those are the electronic version of the aircraft that are coming. You can see from this graphic that not only did we have airplanes airborne, but we had cruise missiles coming in from submarines and destroyers who were in the Gulf there as well. Now, as these aircraft converge, you've got these 7 B-2s who are refueling the entire way. A lot of you have asked me on Twitter this week, just so you know, there is a toilet inside the B-2. They actually have a nice little kitchen, a crew area. The crew actually swaps; they take turns, so they don't have to fly the whole 37 hours. So there's a some semblance of comfort. In my F-18, we didn't have any of that. We had a seat. That was it. Longest flight I ever flew was 9 hours. Don't even ask me about that. Okay, so like moving on. So anyway, back to the mission. These 7 B-2s, which are armed with the GBU-57s, 30,000 pounds worth of bomb, end up converging now on the target. As they're going, there's F-22s and most likely F-35s in front. Their job is to sweep the area to make sure that there's no fighter aircraft that Iran has launched. Iran does have a somewhat formidable Air Force. All of our intelligence estimates, by the way, tell us that not a single airplane launched. In fact, all of our intelligence estimates tell us that not only did a single airplane not launch, but the IADS, what we call the Integrated Air Defense, that network didn't even light up. In other words, the radars barely even turned on. That's how effective our strike was that particular night. So the next aircraft that come in are typically F-16 Wild Weasels and F-18 EA-18Gs. Those are called Growlers. That's what's called suppression of enemy air defenses, using electronic means, using kinetic means to get all the surface-to-air systems completely down. Clearly, we were very successful as that. And then the pilots move into a phase that we typically call Miller time. That's when you get to the target and then you get off. That's when the targeting computers all get on, all the targets are acquired on the sensors. Now, moving into the weapon system. I think we've got a picture of this GBU-57. This bomb is massive. To put it into context, this GBU-57 bomb is 30,000 pounds. To put it into context, the largest weapon I ever carried on an F-18 was 2,000 pounds. This thing is 30,000 pounds. The F-18, the airplane that I flew, its empty weight was 30,000 pounds. This is like dropping an empty F-18 onto a bunker. This is a massive piece of gear, and each of those B2s, those are carrying 2 of these. As the payload doors open on the B2, it is literally the first time that the B2 is susceptible to enemy radar. During the time that they're flying in, we call these stealth aircraft. They're actually called low observable aircraft. They're not invisible, but very, very difficult to pick up. But as those bomb bay doors open, it creates a big radar cross-section. One more reason why you want the aircraft around it to be supporting it as it goes in. Just so you know, much like in World War II, these airplanes will drop at 30, 35,000 feet. They'll be flying straight and level when the bomb bay doors open and drop. The only difference between World War II and this is you have a single weapon that falls out or 2 weapons that fall out under GPS guidance. So when it says GBU-57, what that means is Guided Bomb Unit 57. The weapon will come out. The GPS unit will attach itself to the GPS satellites and start receiving a downlink. The bomb itself has maneuvering thrusters and fins. It doesn't have power coming out of it. It just falls, and as it falls, it begins its turn. The pilots are giving it several different coordinates. 1, they're giving it a lat long. 2, they're giving it an elevation. And 3rd, they're giving it an angle. This is really important. What angle do they want the actual bomb to go? In this case, they would like it to go directly in to the entrance and typically follow it with another weapon coming right after that. As you can see from the pictures afterwards, those weapons were 100% successful. Now, my last point, Gene, and I'll pitch it back to you, which is this. Afterwards, the military, and certainly the military planners, accomplished what's called BDA,
26.
which is Bomb Damage Assessment. Now, the president in his tweet said that the targets were destroyed. Just so you know, despite the president's optimism, typically military planners will not use the word destroyed. What that means is it's completely inoperable. It'll never be able to fly, to be able to use ever again. What I can guess from looking at the pictures that we're seeing there is what I can guess using sort of bomb damage analysis is that the facilities in question probably went back in time about 2 to 3 years. In other words, it bought us a 2 to 3 year window before having to face this particular issue again. Iranian state media were talking about things moving or the uranium being moved. I'm not believing that at all. Anything that moved in the last 7 days has probably been completely destroyed. So to wrap up, first of all, congratulations to the crews who so bravely flew and executed this mission. No matter how easy or hard the target is, it's always dangerous when you go into harm's way. Number 2, congratulations to our amazing engineers. It's unbelievable. I mean, I want you to think about this for a second. Can you imagine if there's another country in the world that could attack us by taking off, flying 37 hours, hitting us with no defense at all, and then flying home? I mean, we live in an amazing country. And I just tip my hat to the engineers at all of those places that sometimes we like to talk, trash about, but we're so thankful for some of the things that have been created to keep us safe. And finally, thank our president. I love what the president said in that discussion with the press when he just said, "Thank God." I truly believe this is a totally different man than in his first time around. He's much more humble, far more centered, and certainly much more connected to God. So I think it was really, as much as you can say, a flawless mission. I think the diplomacy will continue after that. But as far as the military missions, this is probably in the top 5 of ones that I've seen in terms of just pure execution. Gene, back to you.
All right, Ed, I'm going to go through some of these pictures. We flew through them, and I want you to, from your experience, help everybody at home to understand. Let's go to 26-1B, guys, in the control room. And this shows you the picture of the aerial view, and there's 3 holes, 26-1B. There you go,
Yeah,
that one
so
right there. All right, so explain what we're looking at.
Yeah, what you have, Gene, basically is a before and after. So that first picture was, I think that's the Fordo site. You're looking essentially at the side of a mountain right now. And initially, what you were seeing were the entrances on either side. What you're looking at now are the penetrated holes. So when a 30,000-pound GBU-57 goes into a target, it actually doesn't detonate right away. Most bombs, when they hit the ground, immediately detonate. Upon hitting the ground, they just completely detonate, or sometimes they airburst. These weapons are typically on a delay fuser. In certain cases, they actually have a detonator in front and a detonator in back. Typically, the weapon will wait maybe 2 to 8 milliseconds, 6 to 8 milliseconds before it actually gets into the ground. So it will literally penetrate into the ground and then explode. And typical tactics, you would drop maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 on a delay behind each other. So you'll have one go in, delay, explode, one come in right after it, delay, explode, one come in after it, delay, and explode. And my assumption, they haven't released this, by the way, is that there are multiple weapons coming in maybe 5 to 10 seconds after each other, making it for a really bad day if you're an uranium enrichment scientist in Iraq. All in all, Gene, I would just call this a mostly peaceful protest against the Iranian.
Yeah. All right. Well, look at this next picture. Let's go to 26-2, guys. All right. Here's before, and then this is after. So you're telling me these 3 holes are where the goal here is to hit the spot where at the point of where there's entrances into the side of the mountain.
So if you actually go back one picture, if you can actually see this much more clearly. I think this is actually the Fordo site. You can actually see the entrance. You see the roads. You can actually see the entrance just to the left as the roads come around. Right to the left is the entrance into the facility. And what you essentially see here are 3 holes. My assumption, when you go to the second slide, my assumption is each of those holes has 2 weapons behind it. So those weapons, depending on the surface, by the way, in soil, it'll penetrate a lot further. If it's reinforced concrete, it'll penetrate a lot less. But what you're essentially seeing is a weapon that comes in and it explodes. And the goal, like I said, there's no weapon. If they're truly under the mountain, there's no weapon that's going to make its way all the way down there and explode. The idea is to completely neutralize that site so people can't get in or out. Their complicated machinery gets destroyed. It makes it completely impossible for their scientists to be able to resume operations. And like I said, we would typically never say destroyed, but in this case, I think suppressed or neutralized would be accurate.
All right, so let's go back, control room, let's go back to the video that we played at the GBU-57 of it dropping on the test site. Now, that was earlier in Ed's talk, all right? So we see it dropping, and then it hits. That's it, what I wanted to show.
Yeah, so that's actually a real,
the
last little clip is actually a real GBU-30. I'm not totally buying the 60 meters of concrete bit, but basically what you have is a weapon that comes off, the fins open up. It's designed to come in at a very specific angle. The warpliners, by the way, will give it not only an angle of impact, but it'll also give it an angle of entry. So it can fly, turn left, turn right, and typically they'll fly it so it lines right up at the door, flies right through the door, and goes through whatever concrete, whatever is in the way. It's right there. It just says accuracy within 1.2 meters. That is completely dependent on the GPS satellites themselves, but I think 1.2 meters is about right. And like you can see on this little video, there's usually a first warhead that detonates. It actually blows things out of the way, and then there's a second warhead that detonates right after that. It truly is a weapon designed for this exact scenario. I don't know how the Top Gun movie got so close to this particular scenario. It's like really similar, except in this one they actually sent in B-2s, and that one they sent in F-18s. But it was pretty close all around.
Well, Ed, your experience as an F-18 pilot, thank you for walking us through that. I mean, that was great for help everybody understand what happened.